Welcome to Shared Truth Applied Scripture. I'm Jordan Chambly, joined by Wesley Wildman, and everyone's favorite type of episode that we do is when we bring Chris Woodward into studio with us, and we go over the current events.
Yeah, well, thanks
of
for
the past
listening.
month.
I enjoy it.
I love it. This is my favorite.
We get a lot of feedback.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know. What are we going to talk about today? Like, it's just been, kind of dead, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's pretty much to give you an idea of what I face every morning when I come in. I know it's going to be something coronavirus, or it's going to be soming the election.
Between those two things, my goodness.
Now, when you say coronavirus, what is that? And I'm just kidding.
Yeah. Well, the word coronavirus just means ear, nose, and throat problems. But this particular situation is the COVID-19, as some people may be aware of at this point. But yeah, it's definitely a terrible, terrible situation. The federal government's doing what it can, state and local leaders as well. And a lot of churches are praying that we survive this and come out stronger than we did going into it.
Yeah. And I remember the swine flu coming through. I remember bird flu, Zika, Ebola, West Nile, all these things that has happened in the past. We've never done something like this before, at least not in my lifetime.
Yeah, it's definitely new.
Yeah, where we've gone this far towards a total shutdown. It's very strange. Very interesting.
And something that's new to kind of, I think, the American labor force is the work from home initiative that a number of employers have started, even if they weren't told to do so. A lot of people have been told to work from home if at all possible, maybe come in half the week, things of that nature, do the whole social distancing thing, which if you're listening to us right now, we are separated from one another to a certain extent, practicing those guidelines. But it's different. And one of the big concerns really this week, we had some bad numbers come out. There's a weekly number that comes out every Thursday. It's weekly jobless claims, and these are first-time unemployment claims. And as one might expect, the numbers were really high, 281,000. The forecast was just 220,000. But this gives us an idea of what coronavirus is doing as far as unemployment, and probably it's going to get worse before it gets better. And really, a lot of think tanks and legislators, pundits are debating what, if anything, we should do to try to help these people. We had an idea out from the Treasury Secretary earlier this week of sending people checks starting in the next couple of weeks. For instance, this was a headline we had on onenewsnow.com earlier in the week. Family of 4 could get $3,000 under coronavirus relief plan. But for a lot of people, depending on where they live and what it is that they're responsible for in terms of bills, that may not last very long.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good point. Location matters when it comes to that.
Definitely.
One thing, too, to keep in mind, and I'll just mention this early on before we get into more of the coronavirus. Well, let me give some numbers first. So, as of today, there's about 10,000 cases confirmed in America with 150 or so deaths. The one thing to note on those numbers, too, and this is why you can make numbers just about say whatever you want to some degree. Totally. I do know now that a mathematician would say numbers are numbers. True, but we don't have all the testing in either. So the mortality rate could fluctuate. I mean, there's some things that can fluctuate, and there's a 2 to 4 day delay too because of the testing. A lot of people know that. So as I've said before, this story is being written by the hour. So what we may say today may slightly change by tomorrow. So we really won't know, quote, what this looks like or everything. All we can do is some type of guesstimation, which is also dangerous, but, you almost have to, now I know some people may disagree with this, but you almost have to make sure you're over-prepared or prepared just because you don't know. So I think that's where a lot of people are going to have a lot of difference of opinions on how that looks. But anyway, so back to what I was saying at the beginning. I have been looked into this quite a bit because they have taken sports from me.
Oh, no.
Because moment of silence.
Moment of silence. Because that's the case, I have looked a lot into this, and I've listened to those that are in the conservative groups that agree and disagree with the positions that are being taken by the current administration and all of America pretty much. I've also listened to liberals that agree and disagree. I've listened to all 4 camps, and what was interesting is that all 4 had a little bit of truth to them, a little bit of overlap, which makes it I don't know, I wouldn't say scary for me, but it makes it frustrating.
Yeah.
Because I don't know what to think. Here at Engage Magazine and our parent company, AFA, we always like to get to the bottom of stuff. People know us for get to the bottom of it, even if it means wading through the weeds.
Right, yeah.
And we're trying to do that, and there's just a lot of unknowns. So.
Yeah, and I think, too, I mean, no matter what, like you said, this story's been written by the hour, and honestly, I don't think I'll keep from having a fully formed opinion until it's over.
Yes.
Honestly, because who knows, this might come back one day, and if that's the case, then whatever we've learned from it now, I mean, then we'll know a lot more. But regardless of what we might think of it right now, when this is all over, things are going to be really different.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, one thing that has not changed is my vow never to run for office, because no matter what an R or a D or an LMNOP who's been elected to something does, it's not going to be to everyone's liking.
Yeah.
And certainly it brings us back to something that we've talked about a number of times in the program, just praying for our leaders, praying that that have the wisdom. I pray often that President Trump and Nancy Pelosi would get along and they'd be able to work things out and come to agreement to do things that better things for all of us.
Yeah.
So certainly be in prayer for them, but also I talked with a doctor from Christian Medical Association this week just about the importance of getting outside if and when possible. Now, a number of people listening are probably in areas where they've been told to shelter in place, don't go here, limit your gatherings to 10 or fewer people, things of that nature. But if you can go outside just to get some fresh air, to get some sunlight, that stuff is beneficial. That's not me telling you that. That's medical opinions that have
that was a
told
common
me about
truth between all 4 camps.
Get
outside.
Yeah, exercise.
Sunlight will do something for you, too. And meanwhile, don't just let, as great as this program is and as blessed as I am to be a part of it, don't let this be your church. Don't let it replace your worship services.
There
and have some one-on-one time with the Lord reading the Bible.
That's good. And I think, too, one thing that might be, I think is an overlap in all of those 4 camps you mentioned, Wesley, is don't panic.
Yeah.
Like, that is probably the worst thing that you can do right now, is act like this is the end of the world.
Well,
because
3 of the 4 say that. There's one camp that says panic.
Well, if 3 of the 4 say it, then it's probably not.
Exactly.
Right. And something I've noticed, too, is, a lot of Christians are panicked about this, which brings us back to why we need to be in the Word, so that way we, God tells us don't have a spirit of fear.
Yeah.
It's understandable. It's natural to have have that feeling where you start to panic or whatnot. But I mean, like, we have people that trust Jesus for their salvation, but we freak out when there's no Charmin on the shelf at the grocery store.
Yes.
And, and that's how we are. I hope we learn our lessons as a society from this, so that way we better respond to the next big crisis down the road. But it's 2020, and we're still having to tell people to wash their hands. So I don't know where we even begin.
Yeah, there are some things that there are precautions that I think that fit into all 4 camps, and they 1, wash your hands, 2, don't touch your face, and 3, during the seasonal time of there being a lot of viruses, be more cautious of those first 2 things, but also, if you can help it, avoid really congested large crowds. Now I'm thinking, as I'm saying that, I'm hesitating because I'm thinking about the baseball game I wanted to go to.
Right.
So there, I think within reason. Now
within reason.
Right now, obviously that's not even an option.
Right. Yeah.
But even during a flu season, it's something to consider. Or during other types of virus seasons, it's something to consider when you're going to those events. To make sure you wash your hands. Make sure you're not touching your face, and be careful where you cough.
Yeah.
Things like that.
Did you see the video of like the college students and I guess high school graduates or soon to be graduates that like all went to spring break, and it was like the worst examples of like the spring breakers that you can see where if I get corona, I get corona. I'm here to party.
No.
I mean, I'm watching it and I'm seeing a little bit of my younger self
So they're like
there, but at the same time, it's I guess maybe if you're looking for what it is that you could do or should be doing a little bit differently here, it's just think of all the silly things you did, and don't do those now.
Yes,
especially with your kids and wife and whatnot.
It's just a good time for us to practice loving our neighbor.
Yes,
and loving your neighbor means, even if you don't necessarily agree that this is a dangerous situation or whatever, just acting towards people who might feel that way in the way that you would like them to act towards you. That's just the best thing to do right now. Good. And I mean, it's the Christian thing to do.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And another thing is I've mentioned in my study of this that I think that there'll be a lot of, and I thought this, and then I realized it's already taken place. I'm not on social media, so I missed it. But apparently I what do you say? I prophesied something that I didn't know I did. But I said that there would be there's a potential to be a lot of division among Christians on the response degree, the degree of response on how we should go about individually responding to this. And sure enough, when I mentioned that at one of our meetings, they said, "Have you not seen social media? One church is saying to the other church, we live by faith. We're going to do whatever we want."
Yeah.
And then the other one says, "Yeah, well, we care about people and you don't." So that's two extremes.
And then you have Romans telling us to obey the government authorities, and the authorities are telling us, "Hey, it's not a great idea to do this."
And it's seasonal. It's not that. It's not like they're saying you can't attend church
exactly,
because you're a Christian.
Yeah, they're not telling you can't worship. They're saying, "Hey, let's just keep the gatherings maybe small and take some precautions." It's not unreasonable.
Didn't we talk one time in one episode about I think we talked about this in one installment of this show, was the importance of applying context, because oftentimes we extract a verse or a couple of verses, and we build a doctrine around that versus, what exactly was the Holy Spirit inspiring this person to say at this exact moment, and why? There's that age-old joke that when you see therefore in the Bible, you should see what it's there for. Exactly. Whether it's Jeremiah 29:11 or faithful without works is dead, things like that. Really read the entire thing. And don't just focus on that one verse.
Yeah, it should be in the context of the entire Bible too. I mean, some of those things.
Well, and the thing is too, what's interesting, I talk about this sometimes with some kids that we have in our Sunday school class. But Paul, for example, said, don't have any murmurings or disputings, things of that nature. And all Scripture is meant for all of us for the purposes of things like correction and instruction, doctrine, things like that. And as I try to tell people, if the Lord said it to those folks then, He's still saying it to you now. Now's the time for us to really live up to and do those things, like love your neighbor. If you have, an elderly person next to you, do the distancing thing or whatever it is that the government is recommending. But if you've got some extra food, maybe some extra health and beauty aids, toiletries, whatnot, find a way to properly share those things with them or donate them to them to make sure that they have what they need.
That's good.
So they don't go out with all the 20-somethings that are not paying attention to what the government is saying.
Don't do that. Yeah. So how do you think this might be affecting the whole election stuff going on?
Well, it's interesting. I've actually seen some opinions out there on social media, which I know everybody and their brother has an opinion on social media. But there have been some opinions and supposed sources with knowledge of the situation. When would you ever quote a source that didn't have knowledge of the situation?
I would hope you
but anyway, there are some stories or claims out there that Democrats are kind of scared about the election based on how Trump has been handling the situation, maybe how he has conducted himself during this crisis, things of that nature. And then there are other people that maybe are trying to make things look worse, so that way they can try to get their candidate in there. I can't speak to everybody's heart, but I do think it will have an impact on the election. Republicans are interested in seeing how President Trump's responding. Democrats want to see how he's responding, so that way they can try to pounce on it. And then you have the very important independents that are going to be the ones that are going to make that last-minute judgment call, and we'll see how that goes. But as of right now, it's pretty much looking like Joe Biden is going to be the nominee for the Democratic Party's presidential nomination 32 years after his first presidential run in 1988.
Wow. I'd forgotten or didn't know.
He ran in he ran in 88.
That.
He ran for the first time in 2008, and then of course he became Barack
The reason
Obama's
I didn't
running
know
mate.
that because I wasn't born then.
Yeah, me neither.
Hey,
Yeah.
how do you have any idea how well he did, or how far did
He
get?
actually dropped out. I'm not old enough to remember that myself, but he actually dropped out at some point early on because he was, or at least his staff, was accused of plagiarizing a speech.
Okay.
Oh,
And that was
okay.
a really big
Yeah,
issue.
I've seen those videos.
Right. He
yeah.
was very popular. A lot of people liked him. He was a young guy. He was a well-known person by that point. He had been in the Senate for a number of years. But yeah, his getting out and then some other things that happened with other candidates led to Michael Dukakis going on to get the nomination and then just getting slaughtered by H.W. Bush in the 1988 election.
Well, I want to get into Biden and his more than likely being the candidate for the Democratic side. However, before we get there, back to the coronavirus a little bit. So, how do you think the people, all of America, on both sides, are going to respond to this crisis that Trump's facing, as far as blaming him for that? Because any illness, even when this happened to there was 60 or 70 or 80,000 people died in 2009 under Obama's administration because of the directly because of the swine flu. Nobody blamed Trump or nobody blamed Obama or not that I can remember. I don't know if the media did. I don't remember.
Yeah, I don't remember.
The reason I say that is because, and I wouldn't either.
Yeah,
I wouldn't have blamed Obama for a virus.
Right.
I mean, so like, how do you think that's gonna play out?
Time will tell, but I would say right now it looks like we're responding as a nation similar to how we did after 9/11,
That's what
where
I thought.
everybody
That's
kind
what
of
I
came
think.
together. We knew we had differences. It was the elephant in the room
But
that
it's
we
life or
purposely
death.
didn't discuss because there were things we had to do to protect our nation as a whole.
Yeah.
We as a society, I still believe there's, we all know we have our differences and we're willing to lay those down at times, and I think this is one of those times.
Yeah.
But depending on whether things get worse or what happens on the campaign trail, what's very interesting with the election is how this is going to impact a couple of things: the conventions, which are this summer,
That's true.
and then more importantly, just campaign stops.
Yeah.
I think President Trump has wisely made the decision not to appear on places or at places because the media will say, well, he's ignoring the coronavirus situation so he can go hobnob.
Yeah.
But also, it keeps Joe Biden off the campaign trail.
That's right.
So, unfortunately, you might see more television and radio ads from Biden because I don't know what else he can do.
They can
if
spend
he's
their
not out
money
there.
on that as opposed to locations.
Yeah, maybe he'll have Bloomberg, who has now endorsed him, throw in some money.
Yeah. Well, then if you don't have, at some point you're going to have a debate even if nobody's there, right?
Right.
For TV.
Yeah, we
has
had that
to,
with Biden and Sanders. It was an empty room.
That was weird.
It was. It was. It was different. It was also on a Sunday night, which is, in my opinion, not the best night for a couple of reasons. You do depend on people of faith to vote. And I think some people are alienated or feel alienated if you take time out of the Lord's Day or their Sunday night service or something like that to debate the issues for the umpteenth time. But also, it's just a really bad night ratings-wise on television. If you were to go back and look at a lot of the numbers, there were a lot of events or programs that did as well, if not way better, than the debates between how many ever candidates. Yeah, we will see, I think, unattended debates. I would not rule it out for sure.
Well, then let's get to where we wanted to go, and that's Biden. So what are some of the issues, or what are some of the problems that he's going to face running up against Trump when it comes to the general election?
Prior to the coronavirus crisis, I would say he faced he faced a really big uphill battle going against Trump in the economy, because the economy has been doing very well for a lot of people. I know a lot of the Democrats have said it doesn't work for everybody, but a lot of people, even if it's just tens of dollars, are bringing in extra money because of changes to tax policy.
That's true.
A lot of people early on in the Trump administration were getting bonuses and things like that. We've seen we had more job openings, a lot more job openings than we did people to fill them. The economy was doing well. Certainly the stock market was doing very well up until about the last week or so. And that was really, I thought, what would help Trump in this situation, which is why it is important to see how he responds to the crisis thus far, because there have been days where the stock market has done well when they've come out and announced this or said they weren't going to do that, and then sometimes, even on that same day, it falls rock bottom again. I think really for a lot of our listeners, I think one big thing that people need to know is that Joe Biden is no longer a moderate on the life issue.
Yes.
He has for most of his legislative career been considered a moderate. He was pro-life in some areas.
Good
he was
point.
in favor of like the Hyde Amendment, which does some things with abortion funding. Or doesn't allow certain things with abortion funding. But because of Bernie Sanders and a number of the far left candidates that were running for president, he changed his position. And so now he's put himself in a position where he's not going to change and go back to being a pro-life Dem or a moderate Democrat on the life issue.
Right.
And that's something very, very important. Also,
Which
religious
Trump will
freedom.
point out.
Yes, religious freedom is also something you have to watch for with Joe Biden. He is nowhere near the openness, if that's even the word to use, as far as President Trump is on religious freedom. And certainly, when it comes to Israel, I'd be very interested to see how he might treat the nation of Israel if he were elected.
Well, listen, those are all good points, and those are some of the things that I would have anticipated, but I gave you a softball there.
Okay.
It was supposed to be his gaffes.
That's
going to hurt him.
He's going to call him Dan.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, he got to. Seriously, do you not think that at some point is that not going to come into play?
Well,
or is that just Joe being Joe?
It should come into play, but depending on how long the crisis goes and how long he's off the campaign trail, that works to his benefit.
Begin with. Yeah.
You know,
People
it does
forget.
hurt him not being able to be out there.
Yeah.
But it also works to his benefit, and I would be shocked if some overpaid strategist has not already said this in a war room type situation meeting with him, that look, don't worry about the gaffes. We'll come up with a series of well-crafted ads or great sound bites. We'll write your speeches.
Sure.
We'll make sure you wind up on media-friendly networks talking about the issues that matter.
Sure.
And I'm doing air quotes.
Yeah.
It could work to his benefit to some extent if he's not on the campaign trail saying and doing what Joe is often known of. And it goes back a long time.
Does.
It's not just in recent years. It goes back a very long time.
Yeah. You almost think that he has some type of health issue.
Right, right. And that's, and remember it was a couple of years ago that people were kind of doing an armchair diagnosis of President Trump's mental state.
Yeah.
But you don't see necessarily any of the people on the left that were doing that to Trump doing it to Biden now that he's very apparently the nominee.
Nobody wants to do that to their guy.
Yeah.
Well, and that's another good point to make is that now I'm going back a little bit here, but after the State of the Union where Nancy Pelosi tore up, I think I may have mentioned this last time you were on, but after she tore that up, there was, at this point, you cannot accuse of Trump of being too petty.
Right, yeah.
I mean, like, once you start doing stuff like that, then the person that would argue my side's more professional than your side, that's out the window.
No, I mean, right.
So we could put. So that's why it goes back to how Trump got elected. You start putting you can say that, put all that stuff down. Let's see policy. Let's see what you vote for. See what you're putting your name aside and what you're pulling a lever for, and that's ultimately what you have to go with.
Yes. So yeah, do your homework. Don't just go to their website and read what it is that somebody wrote for them.
We got a voters guide, by the way.
Yeah, go to YouTube. Yeah, thank you. Go to YouTube, watch their speeches.
Yeah.
Really pay attention to where it is, where it is they've been going, and what it is they've been saying.
Yeah.
Yep.
And
while you finish up a couple thoughts there, I'm gonna go and get the exact website.
Yeah, I was
for our
about to
voter
ask.
guide.
I was about to ask. We do have that voter guide, which is a great tool for people who are wondering what we think, what American Family Association has to say about the qualifications of candidates as far as where they line up with biblical values, with American values, particularly things about family, the life issue, the abortion issue, marriage, all of those things the voter guide is a really great tool.
It said you can go to afaaction.net. That's afaaction.net, and you can find it there. Our producer will put it up on our social media. And she'll make sure you can find it there. So you could go to engagemagazine.net, click on our social media pages, and we'll have it listed there. But that's a good resource, and they can make it as complex or as simple as you want. The more you click, the more details you get.
That's right. Yeah.
But they start off with just rating them as very conservative, little conservative, moderate, and then so on. And so they'll rate them that way. So that'll be helpful.
This is such an interesting month. I mean, it's been an interesting year, to be honest. But right now, all of these situations, they're just evolving day by day. And so when we have you back, Chris, next month or maybe before, because we need to keep up with these things, it'll be completely different. It'll be interesting to see how these things unfold, how I think the heart of American families will change.
We'll have a program on that.
Yeah, we'll have a program on that, and hopefully that'll be out next week. We'll do our best there, where we talk about how, the all this stuff going on,
redemptive
people,
things that come out of this.
What the good things that can come out, and I honestly think that we have a lot to look forward to as far as good things coming out of this. I can't help but see God's sovereignty and God's hand in all of these issues. Really, and I think our takeaway from all this can be, we can be secure. We can have that rest.
Yeah, I mean, let's glorify Him and how we respond to this, be it,
absolutely,
food donations or taking care of your neighbor, things like that.
Yeah. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and don't lean on your own understanding, but in all your ways acknowledge Him, and He will direct our path.
Absolutely, and that's what we want you to do here at Share Truth and Apply Scripture. Every week when we put out an episode, we hope that you leave with that. So we hope to see you again next week.